Shabbat Shalom. I want to speak to you this morning in praise of the end credits scene. If you are a fan of a certain type of movie where there are superheroes and aliens or exploding robots and spaceships and whatnot, the end, the climactic battle is done. Perhaps the hero has gotten a kiss, but wait, you can't leave yet. So you have the credits, and you have the key grips and the best boys and all the actors who played Minion number 3. And then maybe there's like a mid-credit scene. But wait, you got to hold it in for another minute or so. You have to watch all the CGI people, all the compositors, all of the insurances that no animals were harmed, thanking the state of Georgia for its tax credits. And then at the very end, after you've heard where you can buy the soundtrack, there is that one last scene that puts everything together. You find out that someone new is joining the Avengers. There's an unexpected cameo from Weird Al Yankovic. But the OG, the original end credits scene, the most important one, is the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. After the final bow, bump, bump, chick, chick, chick. I've been waiting for my whole career to do that. He shuffles out in his bathrobe and says, "You're still here? It's over. Go home." And that's actually what happens in our Torah portion this week. Moses recounts the giving of the story, God's overwhelming, mighty voice coming out of the clouds. There is fire, there is lightning, there is terror at the word of God. And now, after all this, God tells Moses, much like Ferris Bueller, return to your tents. That seems like an odd thing to put at the end of the 10 Commandments. So where else are they going to go? Like out for shawarma? I mean, one answer is it's as opposed to Moses who's going up the mountain to get more, right? Everyone else, your part is done. Now Moses is going up the mountain for 40 days. And so our commentators wonder why that instruction is needed. Why do the Israelites need to be told to go home after the 10 Commandments? So one answer, which is found in the Talmud, is a little bit subtle or perhaps unsubtle, which is that 3 days before the giving of the 10 Commandments, Moses was told to tell the Jewish people that spouses were supposed to separate from each other, that they were not supposed to be thinking about physical things, and they were getting ready for the 10 Commandments. And now that the 10 Commandments have been given, now that they've gotten that commandment about adultery, if the tent is rocking, don't come a-knocking. But Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Pshicha, a Hasidic master, gives a much more thoughtful interpretation, I think one that we can take with us today, which is this go home to your tents is a statement about what it means to receive the 10 Commandments and then go back to everyday life. It is very easy to be fearful of God, to commit, yes, I'm going to observe all 106, 113. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to murder. I'm not going to swear falsely. Of course I'm going to honor my parents. Of course I'm going to keep Shabbat. When God is up there, thunder and lightning and fire. What happens when you go home and it's just regular life? Can you live the same way when the storm and the drama is done? And so we can think about that for ourselves, right? It is very easy to be holy on Yom Kippur, right? There's a limit to how much you can gossip in synagogue, even here in the talking section. But over break fast, right, what else have we got to do? It is very easy to keep kosher at Passover Seder. All you've got is matzah, gefilte fish, and chopped liver. What about when you get home and Uber Eats is available? Now, of course, there's the opposite, right? So there are the people who keep kosher at home and then eat whatever out, right? Their dishes are going to heaven. But this is actually a little bit more subtle. I think there is a sense in which there are spaces, there are places, community, where there is a lot of pressure, subtle or otherwise, to kind of conform and live a certain kind of Jewish life, right? At synagogue, it's rude to not wait for the hamotzi. At home, right, people aren't even thinking about, should I say a blessing before I eat this food that I'm about to enjoy? When we think about the ethical commandments, right, there are plenty of people who put on a great front in the world that they are kind, that they are caring, that they are nice. But how do they behave at home with their own family? How do they treat the people who are closest to them? How do they treat the people who work for them? Right? The way that you treat your clients and the way that you treat your staff, are they the same? The same idea is actually found in a subtle way in the Shema. So we are told to say the Shema twice a day, b'shivtecha b'beitecha, b'lechtecha b'derech, right? So that you say the Shema when you're out on the road, when you're out in the world, say the Shema, right? Wear a kippah. What does it mean to say the Shema when you are at home? B'shivtecha b'beitecha. And in fact, Rav Kook, who is an important Jewish mystical thinker of the last century, says that that's why you say it in the morning and at night. So you say it in the morning as a reminder, as you're going out into the world, how should I behave? How do I act as if? Remind myself, there is one God, and that God has a goal for me in life, in the world. That God has expectations for me. And as I walk around in the world, as I go to work and school, even if I'm going to play golf, how do I think about the fact that God is watching me? But then I say it again in the evening when I come home, because I have to remind myself that God is watching even when I am under my own roof. And so maybe we can take this idea of, after the Ten Commandments, returning to one's tent, as the Israelites did, as a way of appreciating that transition, appreciating that, dare I use the word dialectic, in our own lives. There are these moments of peak drama, of incredible emotional energy. So last night there was an active shooter event outside of Emory at the CDC, and a police officer lost his life, and our sympathy goes out to those who are affected. And after every incident like that, we say, we have to do something about this. And by the way, we said the same thing last week when it was in New York, and we didn't even notice that the same thing happened somewhere else in between, right? So in the moment when it's near us, we vow, we are going to get up, we are going to march in the streets, we're going to tell our representatives, and then we go back to our tents and we move on. I think about this in terms of those who go off to war, those who experience war. And one of the things that I hear is, as those I have friends who have served in Gaza, and though they themselves are serving with a great sense of ethics, they are trying to do the right thing. Being in war stinks on either side, right? Better to be on the winning side, but stinks either way. And what does it mean to come home, right, after being in a situation where at any moment you might lose your life, or you might be called upon to take someone else's life to save your own or those of your friends? To come back from that to who's going to get the last hot dog is a challenging transition to go through. And so, kind of a funny story. Once during my Yizkor sermon, so at the end of the Yizkor service, after the Yizkor sermon, there are many people who leave before the Yizkor service. The idea is you don't want to be there. It's sort of bad luck to be saying these memorial prayers if you don't have anyone to remember. And so one time I kind of hinted that Yizkor was coming too early in the Yizkor service, and people just started walking out. Like it was too late. Like the dam had broken. We're like, I don't care what else you have to say. We're going home. And so I'm always very careful not to pretend that I'm ending, not to give any hint of when I'm going to end a sermon too early, lest people like just get the wrong idea. Musaf starts, I'm still up here. So don't actually go home right now. But when you do return to your tents, how will you take away what you've experienced today? So Asher in particular, right? Today has been a pretty intense day for you, I think, even though you're relatively chill, right? What will it be like the next time you come to synagogue? There will be a next time, right? But think about, right, whether it's synagogue today or the high holidays that are 7 weeks off or whatever it might be, right? These experiences where there is song and there is intensity and there is learning and there is commitment and there is emotion. And then you go home and there's lunch. How do you take those feelings, those commitments, that intensity, actually bring it back through life with you? What does it mean to take Judaism with you when you return to your tent? Now, for the Israelites, after the 10 Commandments, it was not actually so easy because, by the way, 40 days later, they're making a golden calf. That's a sign of the fact that this is not so simple. But that's my hope and my prayer for each of us today, that perhaps we find ways, whatever the most intense moments are in our lives, of the negatives to perhaps find some resilience, but of the positives to bring something home with us, to carry a spark that illuminates, that warms us, that inspires us, even when we return to our tents. Shabbat Shalom.